Okay.
Who's more popular in Atlanta, the Braves or the Falcons?
Oh, the Braves.
The Braves.
Braves are more
The Braves.
popular. Okay,
The
one.
Falcons fans don't even show up if they start losing more than 2 in a row. So the Braves games are always fun. It's always crowded there, and they have a lot of family-oriented activities. So Braves are they're America's, favorite pastime, and a lot of states don't have, MLB teams like North Carolina, South Carolina, and Tennessee. They all migrate, to being Braves fan. That's why they call it Braves country.
America's favorite team in baseball. I don't think that's true, Sonia.
No, in the South, they are called. I mean, a lot of they are like Google.
They are? Okay, all right. Good morning, Philly sports guy. How you doing, Pags?
Oh my gosh,
I'm doing well. And you know why they're called America's team? You want to know why they're called America's team in baseball? Because TBS would show them before. TBS was one of the first cable channels, and they would show them, and they would bring baseball to places that didn't have baseball.
That's true.
That's the reason why. That's the real reason on why they're considered America's favorite team. Truth of the matter is that they're chokers just as bad as the Mets are.
Yeah, just mad because the Phillies ain't going nowhere.
They won the World Series a few years ago.
Yeah, that was that. And you know what? And I rooted for them because they were going up against the cheating Astros.
Yeah, but that was in the chokers if you win the World Series.
Yeah, that was what the COVID year, right?
2021.
Yeah, it was the COVID year.
We had a big parade. There was no COVID down here in 2021. Not for Atlanta.
I mean, so what? There was a COVID. There was. They still won, right?
They did win, and you know what? It was really more a testament to them because they changed their whole outfield. If you remember, they were like 18 games out or 15 games out at the halfway mark. They traded and got rid of their whole outfield and came back and actually then. Because the Phillies had Joe Girardi, who knew how to not make the playoffs. That's what he was really good at, not making the playoffs.
He does not like Joe Girardi.
Girardi won a World Series with the Yankees, and they made the playoffs in all the years he was.
Yeah, but you could have managed that team to win the World Series that year.
Don't give him too much credit, Pags. Jason is wearing out Google today. They're going to start charging you. You keep.
And Jason, the Rangers aren't even going to make the playoffs. I'll give you that hot take. The Rangers don't even make the playoffs this year. That they're going to repeat.
I don't know about that. They got a pretty.
I'm telling you. Hey, listen. When I make these hot takes, am I ever wrong?
Yes.
Never.
Yes.
Never.
So now listen to you, Pags. This is what you're an expert on. Teams that are favored by 5.5 points in an NFL game. That's your area expertise. You have my attention in those picks.
I tell you, it sucks that I'm always right because it seems like that the Eagles are the ones favored by 5.5 points, and they wind up losing those games.
Yes, and we'll talk a little bit about the Eagles too. Let's talk about the GM. Let's talk about the GM Roseman over there, who is signing players. A kind of a crazy approach, but I can see the method in his madness there. He's signing players that haven't had great careers, like Paris Campbell and a couple others, but they have had one really good year. And he's bringing them in on year contracts, hoping that the change in the coaching staff culture, all this maybe they'll catch lightning in a bottle at least for a year and help the Eagles out. I'll tell you, Paris Campbell is a diva, Pags. I hope he doesn't screw up your receiving core over there.
I don't even think he's going to make the team.
Possible.
Yeah, like I'm not concerned about it. He likes signing these 1-year guys, and they don't make the team. So it's like this is all just part of competition. Let's bring in. Hey, you had one good season. You are trying to get another contract from some other team. Come give it a shot here. We've got the right atmosphere here, where if you want to win and you got some left in the tank, you can show it here. We ain't going to give you a big contract, but we'll give you the opportunity to get yourself a big contract.
Yeah, I see that they signed a defensive back, Tyler Hall. It looks like they also got a former quarterback, from the Cowboys. Greer is his last name. I remember him trying. He's like the fourth quarterback or fifth quarterback in that room there. Again,
a third string. He's battling for that.
Well, they've got like 5 quarterbacks there now. I guess there'll be a competition for the backup quarterback positions. But again,
that's something that's always common too. Like they always bring in 4 or 5 quarterbacks. Again, knowing that some of these guys aren't going to make the team, but it's meant for competition.
Right.
But Kenny Pickett is going to be the primary backup. There's not competition for the number 2 spot. We all know it's going to be Pickett, and then they'll have a third.
It's just a matter of having extra eyes in that room. That's what it is. It has nothing to do with being the 1, 2, 3. I mean that stuff's already set, kind of. This is just a matter of having extra eyes in the room and kind of learning off of each other. I can imagine Grier has probably spent some time with our offensive coordinator, and that's the reason why he's here right now.
And because he played for the Cowboys, he kind of is going to have to know a lot of their tendencies, and that might help the Eagles.
I don't think it's going to matter. I don't think it's going to matter because the Cowboys are only going to be able to play with 16 players this year.
Well, anyway, not only the competition tags, but we saw what injuries can do to a team. We saw what happened to San Francisco, getting down to their running back as a quarterback. So it's important that you at least have 3 quarterbacks ready to go because of injuries in the NFL. Let's get a little bit to let's finish up with the Eagles here. Hassan Reddick, he wants a lot of money. Pags, I don't think the Eagles are going to give it to him. There may be a good trade for him. They already picked up Bryce Huff, former Jet, as a pass rushing option for him. What do you think is going to happen there?
I think it's Arizona or Atlanta. Actually, those are the 2 teams that are really going after him hard. I think it's just a matter of figuring out the compensation. But Arizona, I would suspect Arizona because he played for Gannon. Gannon knows what he's got. He had all those sacks with Gannon as the defensive coordinator. So why not bring him there? Atlanta wants him for the same reason. They want a little bit more ferocity on their defense. So, I mean, I think personally he'll wind up with Arizona.
And I mean, he was one of the bright spots. Even down the end there, Pags. Even when the team was having problems, he was still playing hard and making his contribution there. I bet a lot of Eagle fans will be sad to see him go.
Yeah, he is a Philly guy. You know what I mean? He went to Temple here. He had all those sacks, and then last year he was utilized wrong, improperly. At least we all felt that you don't put him out in coverage. You have him go after the quarterback. One of the biggest differences between last year and this year was the wide 9, or the year before was the wide 9. Wide 9 is a set where he actually thrives in because he's got the speed to get around the tackles, and that's what would get him out to the quarterback. Last year they didn't do the wide 9; they had him in more, and then they put him out in the coverage. You just don't have. He's not a coverage guy; he's a sack guy.
Yeah, he was a pain in the Giants' neck. Both games they played, he was a pain in the Giants' neck. So let's talk a little bit about NBA. The 76ers have fell to the 8th seed, Pags. Of course, Embiid is out. Before we get to whether something or not happens, do you blame the front office that they really don't have the bench that other teams have? The Knicks are still playing with their bench players and they're winning, and the 76ers aren't. And Embiid was a big part of their team. Do you think maybe they should have got another center that's halfway decent, or maybe a better power forward, a better bench? I know you spoke about this before.
Last year, I felt that was the problem, that they had probably the best starting 5, but nothing after that. And you need a bench to be able to win in the playoffs. I think here they got rid of all of their defense. So now, without Embiid on the floor, which is all of your defense right now, you ain't got anybody to stop anything. And that's the problem. You know what I mean? It's just I feel like that they gotta hold on to the 9th or 10th seed. I mean, everybody's saying that they got to get the 6th seed. I don't know that they're going to. I think it's going to be a tough road that they're going to wind up with the 9 or 10, and they're going to have to win 2 games to even get in the playoffs.
Jason asks, when is NB's contract up? Do you know, Pax?
2 more years, I think.
2 more years?
2 or 3, yeah.
Is there a danger that the 76ers don't make the top 10? You got like a week and a half or so, Pax. Is there a danger they could fall out of playoff contention?
They got some tough games coming up. I think that the number 9 seed is 4 away. Like they're 4 games below us, and that means they'd have to win all their games and stuff. I think that we're in. I think that we're going to be within the top 10. It's just obviously this team is not going anywhere without Embiid, and Embiid's got to get back into game shape as quickly as possible.
I don't know if that'll happen. I
don't know either.
That's a little too late.
Pags, you're in the play-in at the very least. The Brooklyn Nets are not going to catch the 76ers. I mean, come on. I'm looking here. The Brooklyn Nets are the Toronto Raptors. Toronto's lost 10 in a row. I mean, the Sixers are in. I mean, they'd have to lose about, Brooklyn is 31 games out. They'd have to make up 12 and a half games on the Sixers. I mean, it's a lot to be in the play-in. Yeah, but getting to the playoffs, the top 6, it's doubtful with Embiid being out. So it's a play-in formula. Hope Embiid.
Yeah, but what the bigger concern is, the bigger concern of this is that an 8th or 9th seed having to play 2 games to get in or 1 game to get in. That's going to be the big one. And I think right now the Sixers are 4 games up on the 9th seed. And that's going to be the bigger telltale. Because
and you
I don't know.
When the smoke clears, Pax, but when the smoke clears and they have the 8 teams for the playoffs after the play-in is done, you don't want to be the 8th seed because now you go up against the Boston Celtics and you want to prolong that as long as possible. Because too many things could happen. Tatum could get hurt. Things could go down. So the longer you avoid the Celtics, the better.
Well, I hear that, but that's going to mean winning that play-in game, that first play-in game, 7 versus 8.
Yeah. We'll see what happens there. Pax, let's talk a little hockey with you. The Flyers win a big game against the Leafs. They're still involved in this and getting into the playoffs. Of course, they should get in. I don't expect them not to. What do you take from this year in the Flyers? What I mean, they're not going to go to the Stanley Cup, but I imagine you got to be really happy with the progress they've made this year.
The biggest difference is just the show of the care. The fact that they want to play better is part of what they do best. They block shots. Like that's really the difference between last year and this year. They didn't block any shots last year.
You hated their defense.
Yeah, their defense. There was no defense. That was the problem. So this year they're playing. When you play with a little bit of grit and you got a little bit, just you keep going after the puck and you stay on guys. I mean, we beat the Bruins yesterday, and it was a great game. And they showed adversity because they had the lead, they lost the lead. They had the lead, they lost the lead, and wound up still pulling it out. Normally they would lose those games.
Yes, we're gonna have to let James go. Actually make some money and work. I'm not sure what his other job is, but I know it probably has nothing to do with podcasting. So we'll let James get out of here. James, have a great day.
You too, Eric. Have a great day, everybody. Thank you for having me.
Take care.
Have a good one.
Good morning to Johnny Mac. Do you know that used to be my old DJ name? For a brief moment, I was actually a disc jockey going way back when. And that's how I kind of run this like a radio show, it sounds good if you listen to it on Spotify and that. And that's what I kind of do here. So anyway,
Johnny Mac.
Good morning, Johnny Mac. Good. Yeah, Johnny Mac in the morning. I guess you scared Jack away. Maybe here he comes. He's coming back now. We'll bring him up.
He just gets up and moves around when he wants.
Yeah, is that no? That's not a
I
tie.
thought Pags was going to transition to indoor soccer, so I kind of.
Thank you, Johnny Mac. We think you're awesome too. Thanks for joining the show. And check out all our shows on Roku. Sonia has a show. Pags has a show. Jack has a show on Monday night called Glove Fist with Frank. If you like boxing, I mean, we got shows all day, every day here on Northeast Streaming Sports. Whether you go Roku to.
Let me ask Pags. Let me ask him a Philly question that's going to be a little more newsworthy as we go along. Bryce Harper has 8 years. I repeat, 8 years left on his contract, and now they want an extension. The contract takes him through the age of 38. Now, it makes no sense for a player who has 8 years left on his contract to give him an extension or work something out unless he's been so grossly underpaid where he signed a horrendous deal when he was younger and was given bad advice. He got what he wanted at the time of the deal. Scott Boras was his agent, the guy who milks out every dollar, who couldn't give a darn about keeping a player with the team of his choice. Boras is strictly about dollars. He made that deal. If you're the Phillies, do you extend them? You don't renegotiate a contract because that sets up a terrible precedent. We know that. But do you extend them from age 38 to age 41 or something like that? Come on. 8 years left. Pags, what do you do?
No, this is Scott Boras trying to do something because Scott Boras, this year had a failure year. He failed at all across the board this year. And he's trying to do anything he can to make his money because he's got lots to pay for. So he's like trying to do anything. He's like, let's renegotiate this one. Let's extend this guy so that I can get some extra money. Get out of here. Scott Boras is half the problem. And that's why these teams are fighting back. They're like, no, we're not going to sign these guys for these long-term deals because you want it.
Pags, the Phillies haven't said conclusively that they're not going to do it. And Harper's saying, we're going to have these discussions. I talked with Dave Dombrowski. We're going to see what we could work out. I want to recruit players for the Phillies. I want to be a Philly for life. I love it here, and all that. Why don't the Phillies just shut it down? No, it's not going to happen. You got 8 years left. Or they're going to say this, okay, we'll extend you under this condition. We have an opt-out in the contract. 4 years from now, we can opt out of the contract completely. But if we don't opt out, then you'll get your money.
You know what? I look at this as it doesn't matter. He's stuck here for another 8 years, whether you want to re-sign him or not.
Jack loves, for some reason, Pags, Jack loves talking about contracts. I think he at one time in past life he was an agent or something, but he loves talking contracts. It's one of the most boring things to me, but it excites him all to hell. And he'll talk about contracts all day.
Well, Zach Wheeler the Phillies signed Zach Wheeler to what, like $42 million a year, $126 million for 3 years. Think of that.
He remembers all.
I mean, that's a heck of a contract. They got ahead of the curve, and that's major money.
Jack, you're not going to get an extension on the Mac and Jack Sports shows. So you can stop right now, okay? That's not happening.
He already signed that lifetime contract.
He did.
You ruined it by signing a long-term deal, for low amounts. So
yes,
give
right.
it to all of us, Max.
Exactly.
Jack's coming on my show as well, so he deserves an extension on his contract.
She always promotes her shows. I love it. Keep it going, Sonia. As we talk about Jack and his knowledge of boxing and sports, he can remember anything in sports. I think he can remember those numbers. Now he could be just telling us a bunch of stuff and we're believing him too. But
it could be just making up numbers and you're going nodding, going along.
He accused me of Googling.
Like with Ohtani, the same thing. You read something, you just automatically go along with it.
So what are your thoughts? Has he been gambling?
We don't know, Pax.
We've been through.
Know.
I tell you, he has been gambling, and it's going to be going to be a really big deal because he is Elvis Presley over in Japan. He is king over there, and it's going to tear apart that whole scenario. Like he's the one that's been gambling. Let me tell you, you don't steal $4.5 million from anybody without somebody knowing. This is all a big cover up. This is a very big deal because he's the best player in baseball. This is Jordan gambling. This is it's the exact same thing. It's Jordan gambling. And that's what it's going to be looked at.
Organized crime in baseball.
So does Ohtani go and play basketball to get away from this like Jordan went and played baseball? That's my question. What do you think?
I don't know that he's got those skills.
Ohtani can always, I'm going to tell you, let's say hypothetically, let's make believe for 1 second. He gets banned for life in Major League Baseball. He could go to Japan and play and be iconic in Japan.
Yes.
It's not the same.
No, it's not.
So actually, he's not going to go play basketball. He's going to go play cricket.
Well, he could do
Get
that.
Six runs for a home run.
It's similar, but he's a tall guy. I think he could stay under the basket and maybe get a skyhook going or something. Pags, I'm glad you're here because I want to talk a little NHL news with you, right? So it looks like that NHL, and I think they've done this in the past. I know a lot of sports have done this in the past. They're kind of taking ex-players and putting them in coaching positions and GM positions, right? Because they know the game. It is a business. We all know that. But it's also about relationships. It's also about what happens between players in the locker room or on the field or in the arena. I mean, that's the type of knowledge that former coaches and players have, right? So, I could go with Tom Landry. You could talk about Bill Russell. I mean, this has been happening. And then all of a sudden it comes away from it and you see all these business guys jump in here and then they, again, it keeps coming back around. Do you think this is a good move by hockey? I mean, putting people in position, or do you think the business aspect is more important than the sport itself?
Well, I mean, I think guys that know hockey are not as plentiful. So when you have players that become, part of coaching staffs. I mean, the Flyers have done it for years. They've kept all their players after they've retired. They keep them within the organization and kind of do different things within the organization. I feel that hockey itself is got to figure out a way to promote itself better. And that's the problem really with hockey. It's the reason why they want some of these older guys back and keep them in the fray of things. Gretzky never, he tried to coach and that was, what have you. I mean, you have, like I said, the guys that know hockey are good guys. You think of Yzerman, he's, I know Detroit's hanging on by a thread right now, but but he is a very knowledgeable guy, just in general, you know what I mean, about hockey and about Detroit. So he's like a great guy there to be in that situation. I think that
Pags, Martin St. Louis, Rich Tachet, these are all former players that are doing pretty well as head coaches in the hockey league right now, right? I'm interested in what you talk about. We've talked about this before. How do you promote hockey better? I mean, what do you do? They only got so much. They're not like the NFL or NBA where they can have extravaganzas when they have some kind of draft or some kind of free agency or whatever. Hockey doesn't have the money to do that. How does hockey promote themselves better?
They make the players accessible to the fans. That's how you make hockey better. That was what made hockey great in the first place. That hockey players were not like other athletes. They would go and have a beer at the end after the game with all the fans at the bar. You know what I mean? And it even if you have some layer of protection there, that's what's going to grow the sport in general. Having them more accessible. Because they're not accessible right now.
You make a great point, Pax. When I was a little kid, I went to the old Madison Square Garden to a New York Rangers Chicago Blackhawk game. The big star in the NHL at that time was the Golden Jet Bobby Hall, the big star, known for that savage slap shot. We were able to go down at the ice, hang out by the boards. He came over, he'd sign all our programs. He would skate right over to us. That was the biggest NHL star. Today, do the kids have that? I'm not saying some players don't come over. And hockey players are known for being very friendly athletes. But at that time, it was different. There seemed to be a little more accessibility.
Exactly. And you just don't have that anymore. The money, even when all the other sports were getting money, hockey was the last one to get any money. You know what I mean? That the contracts, it took a minute for the contracts to catch up to the other sports. And with the money is where it came, that separation. It's just, and that's part of the problem. And then COVID kind of completed it. COVID actually hurt hockey worse than all the other sports.
No, Jason makes a great point. Hockey should be in the inner cities a lot more. If we had a lot more black kids playing hockey, here, it would increase a fan base. I know a sport like basketball is the easiest sport. You just need one basketball. You go to a park. Baseball, you need a lot of gloves. Football, you need one football, touch football, whatever. Hockey, I know it's a bit harder. You need sticks, the puck, the nets. So it's kind of hard to informally set up. But if the NHL can kind of like go into the inner cities a little more, promote the sport that way.
Well, that was one of the things that Ed Snyder was really good at, and still the organization is good at, that they do promote hockey in, impoverished areas. And they provide all of the skates and all of the equipment and stuff like that, and get them out there. They teach them how to skate. They show them what they're doing and stuff like that. In Philadelphia, it's kind of a bigger deal here. They do all this stuff. I don't know what they're doing in other areas, but I got to imagine some of that has to occur a little bit.
But this is going to be a telltale sign. Look at the four major sports and see their importance per city. In Philadelphia, the Flyers would still rank number 4 behind the Sixers, Phillies, and Eagles. I mean, for popularity, take Boston, who has a great team in the Boston Bruins now, an outstanding team. Look at the pecking order. You'd have to say the Red Sox, Celtics, and Patriots are ahead of the Bruins, as popular as the Bruins are.
Not true, actually. The Patriots are not as beloved there. I actually put the Patriots probably in the 4 category.
Maybe
they have a bigger region.
Recently.
They have a bigger region to grab from.
Yeah, right. Maybe only because the Patriots have slipped. But if the Patriots were still good, they would be ahead of the Bruins.
Well, not only that, as Pax says, they're called the New England Patriots now, which was a smart marketing move by them, opening it up to a lot of different, areas instead of just Boston, what it was originally named the Boston Patriots.
We're going to call your Giants the Tri-State Giants.
Well, I just whatever you want to call them. I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. Just call them winning at the end of the season, and I'll be happy. That's all I worry about the Giants. And hockey has a fallback, right? It's really a cold weather sport, Pags. I know Tampa Bay has a great hockey team, and some of the Southern teams do. But the Cowboys are, the hockey team in Dallas. It's totally different. And I think I don't know how you make it any more popular. You got a very loyal following that love hockey, period. A lot of people tune in to watch hockey, especially in the playoffs. They may not even watch a game in the regular season because that's when hockey is its most exciting, right? Is during the playoffs, one of the best playoff sports there is. So I don't know if you can make it any more popular than it is. I look here at the semi-pro teams, or I should say the teams that are, the farm system of the other teams. They really don't sell out in most areas. Maybe in Philadelphia they do, but in most areas they don't sell out. You get, there's a 10,000 fan stadium and you got 2,000 people there. That's one of the reasons why the Whalers left Hartford. There's just not a big draw for hockey in most places.
You're right. They do well here. I mean, Hershey sells more tickets sometimes than some of the NHL. I mean, you got the Arizona team. They're playing in a stadium that only has like 7,000 seats, and it's half full.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's and then you got 10,000 people always going to every Hershey Bears game. So
Right.
it's the Flyers fan base is probably one of the most loyal fan bases there are. And the fact that they're playing better, I was surprised to see how quickly they came back. I thought Comcast kind of ruined hockey for a little while, but no, they came back very quickly because they care about seeing good hockey. Like, I'm a hockey fan. I love the Flyers, but I am a hockey fan. There is nothing better. The reason the Stanley Cup is the hardest trophy to win in sports because of the way they do playoffs and good hockey. When you see good hockey being played, there's nothing better. Going to overtime and watching an overtime game for an Eastern Conference final or a Western Conference final is just amazing to watch. Every shot becomes like on the edge of your seat type stuff. And that's fun. That's
Mac would rather watch extra innings in baseball. That's Mac's style, more than hockey.
I mean, that's what
I want to ask Sonia something, okay? I want to detour just a little bit because this is a Philadelphia link. Does Pax have to be concerned with the Giants' addition of Brian Burns? Does that elevate the Giants? Does that impact their defense? Because you obviously are very familiar with them. His years with the Panthers where he's elite.
Yeah, I actually do think that Brian Burns brings a lot of depth to that defense. And I feel like, I mean, he's going to be someone that the entire Eastern Conference needs to be aware of. I mean, people have slept on him, especially with him being with Carolina for so long and us not winning. But you have to look at players individually a lot of times. And his stats are still solid despite him being on, it's a dumpster fire team. I mean, I have to be honest, for the last little bit. And sometimes, like I always say, it depends on when players get with certain teams as to who they are. So I really think that this is a great fit for him. I mean, congratulations to you, Mac, for getting him.
Yeah, I had a lot to do with that.
No, I'm saying your team. So I'm just going to be, nice about it. I think the Giants definitely, and they got him for cheap too. Let's be clear. They're giving us a second round pick, fifth, number 5 or 6 pick, one of those, but not even a first rounder. We thought, fans thought at least, that he would be worth, a first round pick, even if it wasn't a high first round pick. But the point is, sometimes, we overrate what players are actually worth. And
it's timing. It's timing. The LA Rams offered 2 number 1 draft choices from a year ago.
I know that. I was about to get to that. The Rams. That's another reason why we're salty. Last year or the year before, I don't even remember because his name came up in trade talks twice. The Rams offered us 2 first round picks, and we slept on it. I don't know why they kept him longer because he wasn't going to save the team. Let's be clear with everything else going on around him. But he's, if we had waited one more season, we probably wouldn't even get what we got now. So, yeah, he's going to make a difference, to be clear.
Does it not seem, and this is for like the panel here, that great players now being traded are not being traded to the worth? Like, think about what Snead just got traded for.
I was just about to say he's going to the Titans.
For a 3rd round pick. 3rd round and a couple of 7th rounders. I mean, like, doesn't that seem ridiculous? For somebody as good as him?
Well, it's the cap. If it wasn't for the cap, you wouldn't be able to get him that cheap. The Titans, would have had to give a lot more. And the Chiefs wouldn't have moved on from him if it wasn't for the cap.
I don't know, because I know they do a lot of things to fit people under caps, right? They give them incentive bonuses and all that stuff. I guess they think Snead wasn't a player that they were willing to do that for, right? Because they had a lot of other signings that they had to do. Jones was one of the big ones, and I think they got a couple more they got to look at. But I think that you negotiating a deal. I think you take the best deal you can get, right? I don't think as we talked about, as Sonia just talked about with Burns, if they let him go a year earlier or 2 years early, they would have got a couple draft choices for him. But I think the Panthers have to have some kind of star, right? They got to sell some kind of jerseys to make some kind of money because they really didn't have any other stars there. So I think that's why they held on to him, thinking that maybe they would get a little bit better when they got Bryce Young and that. And of course, we saw what happened there. So, but Pat,
they're selling the coffee stain jerseys, aren't they? Aren't they selling those coffee stain jerseys where the owner throws the coffee on them?
He ain't threw no coffee. He threw Cavassier. So it's going to be alcohol stain.
And perfect. That's even better.
We also got rid of Jeremy Chin and Frankie Lavu too. So those were other big names that were up there along with Brian Burns. And to me, we got pennies. But like Jack said, the longer we wait, and it's even a situation with people like L'Jarius Sneed. Everybody started moving around people like those first few hours of the trade. The longer time has gone on, the more it's quieting down, the lesser people are going to be paid. And even in my opinion, with Russell Wilson going so early to Pittsburgh, they got him for dirt cheap because Denver's paying all the money on the back end.
No doubt. And, and that's why they should move Bryce Harper now. They'll get a better, if they wait another year, they're not going to get nothing.
They don't have to do anything with Bryce Harper. He has 8 years left on his deal. Let's say he's unhappy all of a sudden.
Was he running for president?
You're not redoing my deal. Come to see Scott Boras. You know the example he gave why the Phillies have to redo Harper's deal. He says, well, the Kansas City Chiefs are doing it with Patrick Mahomes restructuring his deal. I mean, what a weak argument. Different sport he's going to. And
he's crying because he ain't making the money.
Let him win. If the Phillies win a World Series, even I might soften a little bit and try to, throw them a bone. But, they haven't quite gotten it done. I mean, even though they've been really good, the Phillies, since he got that.
Pags, you're 100% right. His free agents haven't been signed yet, and that's
the problem. He's got Montgomery still waiting. He's got Sneed only got 2 years. It's like, cry. These teams aren't signing big free agents. They're not signing these big contracts. Yeah, they're finally fighting back against you, Scott. You can't run the show anymore like you were. Sorry.
Right.
I would never deal with Scott Boras if I was an owner. That's why I'm not overly excited the Yankees deal for Juan Soto, because they have him for 1 year. Now you got to deal with Scott Boras, and you have to deal with these ridiculous opt-outs. If I'm a team and I'm signing a guy, no opt-outs. That's it. We make a deal. If you get an opt-out, then I get an opt-out. An eye for an eye. And with Scott Boras, it's ridiculous, these deals. And the teams do cave into him eventually. Look at Cody Bellinger. He went back to the Cubs. He can opt out after the first year and then the second year, okay? That's a 2-year deal. Same thing with Blake Snell. He got a 2-year deal with the Giants, but he can opt out after the first year. Why do that? Unless you're so desperate you want a guy for 1 year, you're willing to lose him.
See, I tell you, we start talking about contracts. Jack comes to life again. We lost a few viewers, but hey, Jack's happy.
He's a lawyer.
No, the contract's important. I mean, listen, Max, the whole time, Sonia, you weren't on the show yet. Pats can remember this. When the Judge contract came up, Max said, just get rid of him, move on from him. The Yankees offered Judge something a total of $213 million. And Max said, if he doesn't take it, just get rid of him. And I said, if you're Judge, you're out of your mind to take it.
I still believe that's true. I mean, they haven't won a World Series with Judge yet, have they?
Just get rid of Judge. Pat, will you take Judge off our hands? Would you give us a draft choice if we gave you Aaron Judge?
2 draft choices. We want
2 draft choices.
Yeah, a 9th and a 10th round pick.
Well, and what about you, Sonia, with the Braves? Would you give us a draft choice? We'll give you Aaron Judge.
If they traded him,
choices.
All right. So you guys
definitely top one,
You guys can not win a World Series with Judge also, just like we have it. So let's make fun of the Jets for a minute. We haven't made fun of the Jets yet today. That's one of my favorite parts of the show. So the Jets, they're looking to get another tight end. Jack's happy because this guy, what's his name? Blotter. I mean, I forget what his name is. I got it written down somewhere. I'm just being lazy, Jack.
Brock Bowers. He might not be available by the time they pick at number 10. I mean,
well, they said that's one of the ones they're looking at.
They have Tyler Conklin. They just have actually a decent tight end right now. That's what the problem could be. Conklin is pretty good, but Brock Bowers is going to be really a real top of the line tight end himself.
Yeah, and that'll be great when Aaron Rodgers isn't playing next year, that they have Brock Bowers there with him, and because we know he's not going to.
Well, no, the Jets did address the offensive line. They can use one more offensive lineman, but I'm going to tell you, then the question comes up: need as opposed to best player. There's one player actually projected to go to the Eagles in these mock drafts. Nate Wiggins, the cornerback from Clemson. He's outstanding. He should be a top 10 pick, but chances are teams are going to pick according to need. And if the Eagles get him, what a steal. He's the Trent McDuffie of this year's draft. Eagles might get him.
There you go. I'll whatever he just said.
Yes. Yes. The drafts are the most overrated.
Oh yeah.
Wait a minute, Jack. Before you start taking over the show here, I'll give it to you after this. The most overrated thing talked about is the draft, because really nobody really knows 100% what's going to happen. Teams could be blowing smoke. The team could jump up at the last second and grab another player and prevent the other team from getting them just out of spite. They could draft down and not take the player you thought they were going to take. I mean, to me, it's the most overrated stories. To me, is the draft. I'm just trying to make Jack happy that that maybe he gets Malik Neighbors. Who knows? I mean, that's possible.
No, but if sometimes there's public pressure that influences GMs. I don't know what's going on at Carolina goes in the second round, so they're going to get the best player available straight out because they have a lot of needs.
It's almost like a first round pick, being the first pick in the second round.
Knows how to maneuver things.
This draft, maybe, because it's so saturated.
Like a cornerback. Do you imagine that with their needs at for the offensive line? They still need, even though they've addressed it in the offseason, or receiver, for them to go defense would really take a hit, even if a guy like Wiggins, they wanted to, they made a bold move. It's public pressure and perception.
I mean, we've been rebuilding the O-line. The last few people that we've picked in the free agency. No one expects them to go to the defense, but they seem to have at least 6 or 7 players. Sean Jackson's one of them. The guy from Pittsburgh is another one. Some dude named Lewis. I don't know a lot of these people. And they also got David, I think his name's Jones or something, from Tampa Bay that's going back to Carolina as well. So, Tampa brought in some of their coaching staff now that we have David Cannell is down there as a coach. So I really don't know, to be honest with you, Jack, because if they do have a defense, like start pulling defensive people, it will be like a whammy kind of, because they need to just focus on the O-line. The defense started out last season ranked fairly decent. It's just the O-line was so bad that it just brought everything else down. So we should kind of stay offensive minded. Bryce needs more weapons at this point. Somebody needs some help out.
So what a lot of things I've seen, Pags, when I watch successful teams, right? They normally go free agency for the offensive lineman and they draft the defense, right? I mean, the Giants were big in that in the 80s. They got Bart Oates and some of the linemen through the free agency. Then they get Lawrence Taylor. Then they draft, Leonard Marshall. And I imagine the Eagles did the same thing. And it looks to me that has always been a winning formula. A lot of teams are doing that this year. They're going to free agency to get their offensive linemen, and they draft in the defense.
I don't necessarily 100% agree with that, but I mean, only because the Eagles have been very good about drafting offensive linemen. The last big free agent signing they had was Jason Peters, which was a great free agent signing back then. But you're not doing that so often. Like Lane Johnson, drafted here, stayed here. Jordan Mailata, drafted here, stayed here. Jason Kelsey, drafted here, stayed here. They've paid their money on their offensive linemen. I mean, like Sayamalu, like if you could get an offensive lineman from Philadelphia, you've actually done really well. And what they do is that it's like you're an offensive lineman, it's like you're a quarterback in Philly because you don't get to play for the first year because you got to go through Statland University. You got to go and learn from that offensive line coach. And he is revered as the best offensive line coach in the NFL by not just the Eagles, of course, by other teams, that he is just amazing. So when you get Halavalui Vaitai, when he goes to Detroit, he's the one that's going to be able to set the tone for that offensive line because he's worked under Stoutland. You know, that's why when you go Pittsburgh and they got Sayamalu, I mean, I always felt that Sayamalu was the weakest link on the offensive line, but he goes there and he does really well because, again, he's played under Stoutland, and that transcends. You could take that and go to any other offensive line and show them some of the techniques, and they're going to get better as an offensive line in general.
Well, what I've noticed about the Eagles and the Dallas Cowboys to an extent is how they do re-sign and take care of their offensive linemen. Maybe the best in the last 5 or 6 years at doing that. And that's why that offensive line is so good. And you make a great point with developing offensive linemen. We talk about developing quarterbacks. We talk about developing wide receivers. Nobody really talks about developing offensive linemen. And to me, of course, I'm with you, Pags. If you can't win in the trenches, you're not going to win in football.
That is correct. That's how championships are won.
Well, I think the leadership factor is invaluable. Where it comes from, it doesn't necessarily have to be the quarterback. Like with the Giants, for example, Michael Strahan was more of a leader than Eli Manning, but it didn't diminish Manning in the slightest. People knew how important he was. With the Eagles, with Fletcher Cox retiring, Kelsey, who exactly is going to be a leader? Jalen Hurts doesn't strike me as quite being the guy. Not that he wouldn't be one of the leaders, and he wouldn't be diminished if someone else stepped forward. But who exactly do they have now who's going to emerge as the one focal point, as the leader? Or do they need that necessarily? But I think it's important.
I'll be honest with you. I think that's part of the reason why they got Saquon here.
I was just going to say that.
Yeah,
I don't think. Okay.
He does have a strong presence, and that strong presence is going to kind of take away a little bit of that need for Jalen Hurts to be that guy. And on the defensive side, you still got Brandon Graham, you still got Big Play Slay. You've got guys. Now you got C.J. Gardner-Johnson again, and they are vocal leaders in general. So I think that you have enough voices in that locker room that if it's not coming from Jalen Hurts, it's not going to be missed.
They said Jalen Carter's pretty vocal as well up there.
He is.
He's only in his first year, but yeah.
I'd say A.J. Brown if I had to give one name because the most highly respected veteran and arguably the best player on the team position by position. Arguably.
Actually, I'll be honest with you. I actually give it more to Devonta Smith just because of how well-spoken he is and how intelligent he is. Listen, the funny thing about a locker room is that there is certain respect for talent, but there's more respect for being a human in the locker room. When you have that level of intelligence and you're able to talk to guys and help them through different things, you get a natural respect that comes. We think of things because we are on the outside looking in, and it's like, oh, he's the best player on the team, so he's got to be a leader. Truth of the matter is that Devonta Smith is a good player, but I think that people listen to him more than A.J. Brown because A.J. Brown's got a little bit of diva in him. He is a little bit like that, in that type of, high-profile guy, where Devonta Smith is a little bit more grounded. And when you hear him talk and you hear how intelligent he is and just the way he attacks different situations and problems, it that transcends a little better than just throw me the ball. I'm always open. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's all an ego thing.
You know, the reason why I love having these discussions because other topics come out of them. And let's talk about leaders on a team for a minute. If you look around the NFL, I'm not sure in other sports, maybe hockey because it's very physical, very tight knit. You know, teams that don't have that leadership are the ones that aren't successful, right? I mean, you look at the Jets. Aaron Rodgers isn't. I guess you could say he's a leader.
Oh, he's the undisputed leader. They're gearing the whole team around him.
He just got there.
Wait.
He just thinks he's taking over.
It's hard for him to be a leader when he's not on the field, right? I mean,
exactly.
You know
that's why
saying?
the team was bad last year.
I
The
agree.
leader this year, without question.
That's my point. Don't make my point that I'm making. I mean, you look at Carolina; they really don't have leadership. You look at the Giants last year; really no leadership on their side of the ball. The teams that are really good. You know, in Dallas, even, I mean, they had a problem there at the end. You know, who's the lead? Is it Dak? Yeah, I guess. Is it CeeDee Lamb? Maybe. But there's really not one true leader that steps up and says, "Hey, we're gonna do this, and this is our team, and this is what we do." And when Byron Williams and Jim Jeffcoat, they'll eventually be back together again after some things are straightened out. They talk about this is what makes their teams so great with the players' leadership. The coaches can only go so far, right? They can tell you to run a lap and everything, but they really can't discuss. They can't really talk and converse something to the team without a bridge. Coughlin found that out. I think Belichick had his leaders on his team, Brady, and on the defensive side, that he had a couple leaders. I think this is what makes really good teams great. The Chiefs, Baltimore, Jackson, yeah, maybe. I don't know. I don't think Baltimore really has a leadership like Kansas City in that. And Buffalo, you got Josh Allen, who really doesn't like to get loud, and you got Stephon Diggs, who is just loud. I mean, I think, Pags, that's very underrated when we talk about great teams and great coaches, how great the captains of the team are there.
I would agree with that. I mean, again, when I think about the Eagles winning the Super Bowl, the unheralded thing that was never talked about was that Nick Foles is like a pastor. He's like a preacher. And on the opposite side, you had Malcolm Jenkins. We all we got, we all we need. That's where that saying came from, and that resonated. And the Eagles every week were, and I'm not a religious guy, so I'm not going that route. But they baptized guys in that locker room on a weekly basis. They were guys that were. And really, I don't know that it really had more to do with the religion, just more to do with the buying in to the system and the program that everybody is on, and we are baptizing into the team almost. That whether it's religious or not, whether that really meant anything or not, the fact that you bought in and we are all in this together, when you have everybody on the team pushing in the same direction, you're going to be a great team. And it doesn't matter who's quarterbacking, it was always next man up. There were a lot of injuries. You think about what happened that year. Our best offensive tackle was hurt, with an Achilles. We had, our running back, our best running back and our returner out with, a leg injury. It's like, and we were still able, our quarterback had, an ACL, and we still were able to beat the evil empire, New England Patriots, and win the Super Bowl. And that was because of leadership, because of leadership.
I agree. And when the Carolina Panthers were good, that's what they had, right? They had that leadership in the locker room, and that showed their way in their field. Whether you like
Jake Delhomme, yes, you could say he wasn't a great quarterback, but he was a great leader of men.
I was just going to say what you want about Cam Newton. I mean, whether you think he's a great quarterback or not, at least he was something people could look up to, right? And could say, I want to play with this guy or play for this guy. Something CJ Stroud did this year, which makes
I was waiting to talk about him. I hadn't had a chance to mention him.
Go ahead, Sonia. I mean, how remarkable is this young kid coming there and becoming a leader right away?
Yeah, so you touched on a few things. I was literally waiting to talk about CJ because we often think that people coming into the league cannot be leaders because they're new to the team. But CJ Stroud is an exception across the board. He came in, he took the reins, not only from the locker room perspective, but from a player on the field perspective. He's a humanitarian in the community. He literally looks as if he's, as the older people say, been there before. And he has changed the trajectory, especially with them having D'Amico Ryan as a first-year coach. Texas is the exception across the board for someone overall franchise that could be emulated. You mentioned Cam Newton. Cam was a leader, like people said. Jake Delhomme's definitely a leader. But when Cam was there, he wasn't the only leader. He was such a leader that he had others throughout the locker room in also leadership positions, whereas there was no I mentality. It was a we, and like Pag said, it was literally like baptizing into this belief that this is who we are. We are one, and when you're part of one, you all lose, you all win, you all survive, you all do everything, even off the field, things that different players have. And we see it throughout the league where other players support other players' community efforts. It was almost like the way they were marketing their individual charities and whatnot. They were all like on the same flyer together. It wasn't like Cam's having this. It was more like we, the O-line, are having this. We, the D-line, are having this.
Isn't it
and when
amazing,
you have that type of mentality, it's that's the only way you can win. When performance
Isn't
meets
it
personality.
amazing to talk about Cam Newton, how one play defined him going from leader to losing that leadership ability. That one play,
he got a raw deal on that
trajectory.
He just talked about that all these years later, almost 10 years removed. He just talked about that last week on his podcast and said, I should have dove for the ball. And that's just like what we think about.
That's all it needed to do.
That's what we
didn't have to recover it. He just had to make
what have you
like
done?
He cared.
What have you done for me lately? Not
that
what
was a split-second call. We should forget that. It had no bearing on the game.
Jack, I don't think you can forget that because it's replayed all the time, right? I mean,
such a monumental moment.
And as Pag says, if he just dove at the ball, even if he didn't recover it, it's like, well, I don't want nothing to do with that, and that's why he's marred.
Cam Newton gave his body up so many times in this league,
and all of which 100% true, Jack. 100% true.
Pass on that, a complete
but
pass.
That one play defined the rest of his career. One play.
I agree.
But
that one play was the biggest play of his career, and it was the wrong play.
Right, exactly.
He had so many other great plays, so many other things he did well. Everything that him going 15-1, winning the Eastern, going to the Super Bowl that year, everything he did in that year, all lost on one play.
Yeah.
Most rushing yards by a quarterback.
That's what happens. And that happens to a lot of athletes in a lot of different sports. I can remember
the moment is bigger than what they are.
Ewing with
the moment is too big.
Ewing with the finger roll misses the shot in the Knicks lose.
But think about this. Don't think of that, Matt. Ewing's a love Nick. He's most popular. He probably would get the most popular Nick of all time.
I doubt that. Not as long as some of the older Knicks are alive. But I'm just saying, for that time, maybe years have gone by, but at that time, that was what was talked about. They showed the replay constantly. And anyway, guys, we got to get out of here. Thanks to Keith for coming on, James for being on early. Of course, Sonia on with us every week now. Jack, my sidekick. And, of course, Pags. We always love having him coming on, especially on the Sunday show. Great spirited talk. Great viewership, new viewers. I'm glad we're growing and growing and growing. So stay tuned to Roku all night. have a lot of shows coming on as we continue to grow in shows and followers. Again, folks, thanks for all the views and likes and loves, and have a